Well, Heidi ho, everybody. We are business badasses, and this is business badassery because we're business badasses. Right, Billy? We're business badasses.
You know it. We are, Caleb. We love
We were
being
just
business
talking about,
badasses.
yeah, we were just talking about glasses. I shouldn't even put these on. You see these things?
I've never
They're
seen you
half
with your
glasses.
cheaters.
We'll see. I have normal glasses that I wear, but then I had to keep taking them off and then putting them back on and taking them. Whenever you get up, reading glasses, and they're the weakest reading glasses. These are 1.0s because I'm not blind yet, but I'm getting there because I'm old.
Lucky.
So yeah, so then I'm like, I went to the store and I said, can you guys just make a thing where it's half reading glass, half window? Because they used to have those in the 80s where there was a line.
Yeah.
Well, we could do progressive where it's da 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 da, and then it's like, no, I don't want these $10,000 glasses. I just want literally half reading, half window. Oh, we can't. I went all over Dubai, all over the United States. They won't do it. So then I talked to my dad. He said, just buy half glasses, and that's what these are. I mean, these are truly like old man, old lady. So you just do this.
Those are kind of cute, Caleb. I mean, not that I'm inclined to tell you you're cute. You're egotistic enough. But no, seriously, I kind of dig that vibe.
Shit. I mean, this makes you look like an old man. I look better with the my wife likes me not in these glasses. These are okay. In normal, I don't have them here. In normal reading glasses, my wife likes it. She's like, "Oh, you're hot." I'm like, "Really?" So these aren't hot, but these are just, yeah. So but at least these work. These are fun. I don't look that great, but they're functional. So now I can just leave them on I just pull them down a little bit and I can walk around and do this. And then I can just stick them back up and then look at the computer this way. Yeah. The beauties of getting old. I love it. It's great. Although you wore glasses your whole life, right?
No, probably since I was 10 or 11.
Well, that's the same thing.
So most of it, yes, most of it. But I wear contacts a lot. So I switch back and forth. I use glasses as an accessory because as an outdoor girl and the person who kind of stays at home and works a lot, I don't wear jewelry or very rarely.
Do you know who Ty Lopez is?
I don't.
You don't follow internet culture that hardcore.
I give no fucks about popular culture, just none.
Right, I know you don't. I know you're pure offline, and you're not offline, but you're pure business. He is a big business kind of guru, social media. He's been very famous on the internet, in internet circles for years, and he has glasses, and he got LASIK. He got popular while wearing glasses about 6-7 years ago, and then he got LASIK. And he realized if he took his glass off, he looked too different. So it was bad for his brand. So now he wears window glasses. He wears fake glasses for branding purposes. He doesn't need to wear them. He wears them because that's how he's recognized now. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
I do that sometimes because a guy that I know told me that I looked more authoritative in glasses.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do.
So I started using them to accessorize.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's been studies too about certain people will take you. Some people will take you more seriously wear glasses. It depends on the scenario. Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. We should do a thing. We should do a podcast on branding or personal branding at some point. We should do that. That'd be a really good one.
That would be a fun one because our brands are so different. I'm like the quirky aunt of business and you're more of the bad boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very different.
Be a really fun, contrast.
And what's cool is that different brands, you can have different brands that still work. So your brand works, my brand works, another brand. There are guys who have like nerdy guy brands and they work. Absolutely. There are guys who like scream and yell and are total assholes. I mean, I'm in that zone, but not too far. And that works. So all the different brands work as long as it's distinctive. But anyway, yeah.
And as long as it's true to you, that's the big one.
Right. As long as you're not faking it. Right.
I'm never going to be the screaming, yelling type. It's just not my vibe. It's not who I am as a person.
Right. So that's why.
And it works.
Yeah. That's why I tell men, especially younger guys, they'll ask me sometimes about wearing a suit and a tie. And I'll say, if you have never worn a suit and a tie in your life, don't wear a suit and tie. It won't work. You'll be all awkward. It comes across how awkward, even for business appointments. If you've never worn a suit and tie in your life, don't walk into some really important appointment with a suit and tie if you've never done it in your life. People will smell the incongruence on you. It's not a good idea. Look nice, but look nice for you that you're comfortable where you're comfortable.
Yes.
Right.
Own it too. If you're quirky like me, own it.
Right.
Caleb, you and I both have some quirks. Like you have the black t-shirt is your kind of go-to vibe at home when you're working. Lean into it. Enjoy it. Have fun with it.
Although technically I'm not supposed to wear black because I'm an imperial winter. And so this is an old story. I went to an image consultant like back when I was 30. And they're like, okay, so you have white skin, you have darker hair, and you have blue eyes. So you can't wear white shirts, you can't wear black shirts. And they were right. Technically, they were right. They weren't wrong. I was mad that they were right. But yeah, when I'm home or just casual or just doing stuff like this, I'm like, fuck you, I'm gonna wear my black t-shirts. I don't care.
I'm all about being comfy cozy. So I wear yoga pants and
yeah, see?
I live in yoga pants, guys, unless I'm at an appointment.
Yeah, the opposite of my wife was to get done up every day and spend 3 hours. Yeah, right.
You know, I think good for her that she enjoys it and she has a lot of skill. There's a lot of artistry involved in what she does. I just don't have any interest or patience. I'm a watch and go kind of girl. I'd much rather go camping than spend 2 hours getting my hair done. It's
right. Me too. Okay, 2 hours getting my hair done. Right.
I have to do that tomorrow. I'm thinking about it actually. I'm like, oh my God, so a cut, a color, because I've kind of got some gray happening.
Yeah.
Damn. And other women think that's really fun. They love going to the salon. I
guess men aren't into that. Men want to get in and out. Men want to go to Supercuts for 10 minutes and be out of there. That's what I do. Yeah, that's what I want. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind, if I could make that work for me.
Be nice. I know.
So here's what I really wanted to talk about, Caleb.
Yeah, we should probably get to our topic, huh? We've been meandering.
Yeah, I really
this is welcome to podcast, folks.
Yes. What I really wanted to talk about, Caleb, was bad business advice. I've been thinking
you start because you probably have heard more than this than I have. I've heard my share, but I think you've heard more than I have. I have a feeling, but you start.
Maybe I think we're going to be tied as we go along. But maybe. I think the first, and maybe it's not just bad advice. Maybe this is things that misconceptions that people have out in the universe about what being an entrepreneur means, or working from home. All these things.
Well, but talk about where they get those misconceptions, though, because they get those misconceptions from people they hear from, which is bad advice.
Yep. And historical data, right?
Right.
So historically, men were measured by the number of hours they put in the mine, whether medically, literally or metaphorically, it didn't matter. It's the number of hours that you put into your business. A leader is a guy who's there in the trenches 24/7 with his guys. And you're the person who's going to fix everything. You have to run everything, be everywhere. And I think that's the misconception that drives me most batshit crazy. Can't think of a better phrase for it. Caleb, you and I own multiple businesses. How many hours a day are you involved in those businesses?
A lot.
Not by choice. Not by choice. How many hours, because of the way you've designed your businesses, how many hours a day do you have to spend in each one of them?
Do I have to, or do I choose to? Those two very different questions.
Have to. It's a very different question, Caleb.
So my typical answer, and this is still true, this fluctuates over time, but it would be one full day a week, another decently hard day, and then maybe an hour a day after that. So maybe one day a week would be all day. So let's use Monday all day, Tuesday, maybe half the day. And then the rest of the week, it'd be an hour a day, if that, with maybe 1 or 2 days off there. Yeah.
Your business is creating content. And that is the largest percentage of your time is spent physically making content.
Well, that's one of the most important functions I do that I can't outsource.
Exactly. And when I think about other businesses that are maybe built on delivering a service or a specific task, those owners don't need to be in the business at all on a day-to-day basis. And I was reflecting on that with my service-based business. My friend and I own a business together in Minneapolis, St. Paul market called Before and After Real Estate Services. So we sell services to real estate agents and investors. Those services include, cleaning for move-outs, painting, gutters, many things that agents or investors would need. I've never cleaned a house. I don't clean my own house. I pay someone to do that. Ambrosia and I don't perform any of the services that our company provides. We manage the business. We spend less than 5 hours a week between the two of us managing that business. We don't have to kick our asses every day performing tasks.
So you're literally spending like 2.5 hours a week on in terms of your time?
Yes. And some weeks, yep. And some weeks significantly less. Some weeks I don't have to do anything, or maybe I'll just pop in to say hello and check on our project management tool to see that things are flowing. But they always are, because we've set up a small and very talented team.
Now, I know what guys from my audience will immediately want to ask, and you don't have to give out these numbers you don't want to. Okay, fine. She works 2 hours a week. How much money is it making? So in a typical month, and you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
So I would say a considerable amount that is continuing to grow. It's not the majority of my income. I have 3 other businesses that are the majority of my income. So this is a small growing sector, but it's enough that it makes sense to turn it to choose an S Corp delegation at this point.
How many businesses are you operating under right now that are actively taking your time? Not business you're involved in, but businesses that you're actively involved in a typical month. 5 or 3?
Right now, the ones I'm most involved in are Boss Cooperative, which is my coaching consulting company. I'm also involved pretty heavily in Billie Consulting right now. And my other companies, I don't have to be involved on a daily basis. Most of them run themselves. And some of them are sort of on hiatus because I pick it up when I feel like doing it. They're more hobby businesses, but they're still making, $3,000 to $5,000 a month as just something I do for fun occasionally.
Yeah, that probably takes very little. That probably takes very little time, right?
It does, absolutely. Very, very little time.
And those are location dependent, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so most people watching or listening to this podcast would kill to get 2,000 or 3,000 a month, location independent, on 0 or near 0 hours a month. So to you and I, because I have income streams like that too, and I never think about them, but because I make enough, my total income is such that it doesn't. But when I rewind how I used to feel about this, when I was a kid, you and I say it's just 2,000 or 3,000 a month. I don't even think about it. But most people, including the majority of this audience of this podcast, would be like, "Oh my God, 5,000 a month, location independent, and it takes you 1 hour a week. Oh my, that'd be a dream come true." I remember that being a dream come true for me decades ago. Oh my God.
A decade ago, I wouldn't have believed this level of income and the different passive revenue streams would really be this easily achieved.
But see, that's my point is we have income streams today. And I'm not saying this guy's to brag. I'm just telling you how the progression works for this stuff. You and I have income streams today that are goals of individual people who want to quit their jobs and have their own business, be location independent and be mobile. And I mean, 2,000 or 3,000. And if you think about this, and I've told my audience this, if you're making $3,000 a month, 100% location independent, even if it does take you 20, 30, 40 hours a week, it may not, but even if it does, you're in the upper 1% of humanity, not 1% of the rich. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the world. If you make $3,000 a month, it's not like you have to make $1 million a year. You should if you want to, but if you make $3,000 a month on 25 hours a week and it's 100% location dependent, that level of lifestyle, you're in the upper 1% of the world. I mean, it's what percentage of even Western people in the United States don't have that, don't have 0 in terms of location dependent income, or maybe they have investment. Maybe it's a few $100 a month. You can't live on that. You could live on 3,000, especially do 5 flag stuff that I talk about. You go to, Colombia or Thailand, or a place like that. You can live on that.
Well, if you live in those countries to begin with,
right.
What we do can be a real game changer. I know that that's what happens. Muhammad is someone I just love. He's from Pakistan, and he runs the day-to-day operations in one of our companies. And for him, having the opportunity and the networking capability here through us is a lifestyle changer. And he's able to spin that off into growing his own business, bringing people from his rural community into that fold, and thereby changing the lifestyle of a lot of people around himself.
Right.
So location independence can give you access to people and opportunities you might never see.
One of my examples of these income streams that are little to me now, but would have made a huge difference and did make a big difference a long time ago is, so one of my companies sells ebooks for men. And that makes just the sale on ebooks, because I have that company sells ebooks, courses, coaching, a lot of things, events, all kinds of stuff. So just the ebooks segment, I don't know off the top of my head, it's around, I want to say 6,000 a month if I do nothing with it, and I haven't done anything with it for years. It's 6,000 a month or so, maybe 5, maybe 7. I'll say 6. So it's 6,000 a month, location independent. I do literally nothing to maintain that particular stream. I don't put any focus into that stream. Most of my focus goes to sovereign CEO stuff and my other stuff that I don't even talk about on the internet. And so by building up these location independent business models, I now have an income stream, and I have like 15 of them, but that's one of them. One of them is $6,000 or so a month. That takes me zero, essentially, maybe not literally, but essentially 0 hours a week. 0 hours a week, 0 hours a month to maintain. And that is almost at the level of, because what I recommend, and if you guys know my content, those of you who know my content, I recommend $85,000 a year as a baseline minimum income. And the reason for that is there's numerous scientific happiness studies they've done where if you make less than that, you'll definitely be happier if you make more money. If you make at that level or higher, if you make at 85,000, you may or may not be happier making more, depends on the person, or at least you get diminishing returns, maybe. But anyway, that's around 7,000 a month. So one of my 0 hours a week maintenance income streams is almost at that level. Now, it took me a few years to get there, but this is what I tell guys and women. Matter of fact, I was just talking to a woman the other day about this. Let's say it takes you 3 years or 5 years. Let's say it won't take you 5 years. Okay. Especially if you have our help, Billie's help, listen to this podcast, and you avail yourself of these other services we have, or either other people's services. But let's say I've said this before, let's say you're a moron, takes you 5 years. Okay, it takes you 5 years to get an income stream around $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month that takes almost no work to do or very little work to maintain, which is the entire business model that I've talked about. Take your current age and add 5. And now you're that age. And now you're set for life. Not literally, but you get my point. For the rest of your life, you have that income stream that you can maintain or scale or whatever you want. And your location dependent, you can go anywhere in the world you want and set your own schedule and do all that stuff for the rest of your life. What kind of ROI is that on that 5 years? It's insane. It's thousands. It's infinite to one. It's infinite to, it's crazy. So who cares? And that's why you can make these big changes in your life by just this, to what is to me and Billie, not that much money. If my income dropped by 6,000 a month, I wouldn't notice it. If it increased by 6,000, I wouldn't notice it. It may or may not bother me depending on the month, but I wouldn't care. But that's my point. So I took the time and effort to invest into these years when I was doing blogging back in 2009 and no one was reading my blogs. There were very few people. And I would see my number of views per week. It was like 30 views. And I put another blog article in there, and I put in the time, and it's an investment long-term that is better than any investment you could make in stocks or bonds or any of these other things, because this is going to pay me now for the rest of my life, in theory, unless I do something radically different or shut down that income stream. So that's how powerful this gets without even having to make a lot of money.
That's exactly it. Having that control too. This isn't like Social Security or some kind of a
right. Oh, that's a good point. Didn't mention that. Right. So we control this, don't we?
We do. It says it's recurring income at the scale we want it to be, as Caleb mentioned. There are some products or services that you can invest 2 years in and make $20,000 a month. And it really depends on what your offering is. Caleb and I haven't personally gone down that route with physical durable goods. But I have, one of my companies is literally just for fun, to serve a need of mine to be creative. So Caleb, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I own a company called Florelli Jelly. And it's literally, I know.
We have not talked about this. I have no idea.
So a few years ago, I was watching a documentary and I just had some surgeries. So I was like laid up, and I love documentaries anyway. But the lilacs were in bloom and I wondered if they were edible. And I found out that lilacs are edible. And this
Lilacs, the flower?
Yeah, lilac, the flower are an edible.
Okay, I'm silently listening.
So I was watching this documentary from Britain called Wartime Farm, and they showed how children would help harvest medicinal plants in the UK during the war. And that's kind of what got those wheels turning. So I decided to try and make lilac tea. I mean, literally use, hot water, blossoms, that's it. And then I realized you can make jelly out of that. And then I realized there are a lot of flowers that are edible. So we had violets and dandelions and things in the yard.
Oh my God. So I can eat dandelion jelly?
Yeah.
On
it
my
tastes
toast?
like, yeah. Or put it in tea as a sweetener.
Let me guess. It tastes like dandelions.
It tastes like better, like a honey that you did it. Like honey's really cool cousin.
Huh. It's sweet?
It's sweet, but it has kind of it has like a light floral aromatic.
Okay, really quick. So when I was a little kid in the 80s, they had these flowers that were purple and they had these spiking things sticking out. I don't know if you did this when you were a kid, and you'd pull out the stems and they were purple on the end, but white, and you'd suck on them. It would taste like sugar.
That's clover. Yeah.
They're clovers?
Yeah.
I thought clovers are like 4-leaf clover.
So that's like the ground cover kind of clover that they use in fields.
Right.
That has those little stems with the little round purple thing where you
purple.
pick the petals out. There are smaller varieties that have white ones, and they're not quite as dense. They're quite a bit smaller and not as dense. But yeah, we used to do that.
That's why I didn't challenge you when you said it's sweet, because I remember those flowers. Little girl was playing with it, said, you take this and you suck it. And I'm like, what? Okay. I'm like, oh, that tastes like sugar. Okay. And you just, I remember doing this when I was like 6. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
So anyway, I started going crazy and I started gardening. I've never had an interest in gardening since that story I told you about cucumbers, when I sold cucumbers as a wee child. I thought gardening, someone else can do that nonsense. But I realized I could grow all these different flowers. And so I literally just, for my own edification, just made all sorts of crap out of flowers. And then I realized I was giving it to friends and family. They all thought it was amazing. So I set up a booth at just like a harvest festival and sold a couple $1,000s of jelly within 5 hours.
Really? Huh.
So, I mean, literally, it's not as passive as what you're describing. I have to make things and label them, but I have all that set up. I invested that time to make label templates.
But you could outsource that too.
Well, that's exactly the thing. I outsourced the label templates. I outsourced everything. I physically make the product because that's my hobby. I think that's a really fun thing.
It's a money hobby. Right.
Right. But I'm actually able to segue that. And I've also segued that into speaking engagements that I'm paid for. Like the Wisconsin State Master Gardeners Convention paid me a couple $100 to speak about edible flowers and how you make jelly out of it. So that became a passive revenue stream of its own that I could have explored more, but that's really not my primary interest. My interest is helping you build and scale the business, not how do you decide which flowers you should be eating. But again, revenue opportunities at every turn that came out of just doing something a little bit ridiculous for a hobby.
And so you just talked about monetizing a hobby. That's been my advice for years, is that why not? You should try to monetize all of your hobbies. So my main online business today is an outgrowth of my dating business for men I just mentioned. And that was literally my goal when I started that business back in late 2008, was literally to monetize a hobby. I was going on lots of dates back then. This is 15 years ago. And it cost me gas to drive downtown on these dates, and I had to buy a drink for me and a drink for her. And I would add it up. It was like several $100s a month or whatever it was. And I said, okay, if I can just write an ebook, this was my thought process. It was to monetize the hobby. I didn't want to start a big internet business. I didn't care. I was making plenty of money as a consultant. I didn't give a shit. But I said, if I could make, I think the number was $300 a month. If I can make $300 a month on a dinky ebook on how to do online dating, which back then was a niche. Today it's not, but it was a niche back in 2008. It was like this radical new thing, or a radical new idea. Then that'll pay for the gas and the drinks for all these dates I'm going on. And then it'll make my hobby pay for itself, so I don't have to worry about that in my budget. That was literally my thought process. And I've always thought about, how can I monetize my hobby? As I used to when I was before that, I said, how can I monetize me playing video games? There's no way to do that back then. Now today you have things like Twitch, where you can make a lot of money playing video games. Right. So, but back in the olden days, in 2007 or whatever the hell it was, in the 90s, there was no really way to do this. So I was always trying to figure out, how do I monetize? How can I monetize me going to see movies? I used to see movies a lot. Today movies suck, but back before they sucked. And I thought about, I could do a website where I could do movie reviews, and I could put ads on the site, like Google AdSense ads. That would be enough to pay for the tickets to the movie. So just about today, especially today, any hobby you can think of, you can monetize. And then if you do well, if you make a few $1,000s, like I did with my dating stuff, or Billie did with her jelly stuff, then maybe you go, well, God, maybe this should be my income. Maybe this should be my business. Because that's, once I made a few $100 a month, and then one month I made like 2,000 a month, I'm like, there's real money doing this. Okay, I should set this up as my third business, because I had two already back then. So sometimes that happens, and you're able to do that now with all the resources you have on the internet and everything else. Even without the internet, you can do it. Yeah,
that's just a thing. I think you and I have both surrounded ourselves with people who've done the same. My favorite example is Jeff, who I introduced to Caleb a few years ago, and he's become, one of the key players over at Sovereign CEO and Alpha. His passions are skateboarding, snowboarding, and golf. So he was a golf professional. He's one of the leading users and trainers of a specific golf tournament software in the world. And he monetized skateboarding by giving skate lessons when he feels like it to clients he feels like teaching. I did the same thing. That's the reason I did not compete as an amateur equestrian past the age of like 14, because my family couldn't afford for me to show horses. So I was riding other people's horses for them. And when you're riding other people and they're paying you, you're considered a professional in that sport. So you have to compete as a pro. So I would just ride anything at competitions, the most surly, nasty beasts, just to get in the ring, get some exposure, make a few dollars, and pay for my hobby. And I did that for more than 20 years. And that became very, very profitable for me over time. But again, I was following my passion. I wasn't looking for money to do it. I was looking for money to support my hobby. And then it became something significantly more.
So you just got me on another point on that. And I just thought of this as you were talking, because you reminded me of this. You could, because of your other businesses and your other income streams that you have right now, and all the contacts you've made over the past 15, 20 years through all those companies, and the audience and the customers and the ex-customers and the clients and the vendors, everyone else, you could do anything you wanted in the horse arena now and make some money with it. You wouldn't be starting from zero, because you have all this baseline of these other businesses you've started, right? So
exactly that. And I have the credence too of more than a dozen national titles from a few different associations.
Right.
So we have that validation, and it's something I couldn't have afforded to pursue on my own.
Right.
Without figuring out that income aspect. But you're right. I could jump into any facet of it.
And make some money.
Yep, absolutely.
Even things that would be difficult to make money in if you were starting from zero, because they're hobbyish. And so, right. So my parallel is, and I've mentioned this before in my content, if I didn't care about money at all, unfortunately, I care a lot about money, but let's say I didn't give a shit about money at all, I would write fantasy novels all day long. I would just here in Dubai, go outside, go and sit out with my laptop. The weather's perfect now in Dubai. And I would just write for 8 hours a day. And I wouldn't make shit for money, because that's just not where money is, with rare exceptions, but the exception proves the rule. And it's not about skill. It's about luck and a bunch of things when you're an artist. However, today, if I wanted to, and I will probably do this in a few years, I'm not going to do this anytime soon, but if I wanted to, because I have built up an audience in other topics that have nothing to do with fantasy fiction whatsoever. Okay. None of my None of my any of my companies have anything to do with fiction writing. None of them. However, I have a big enough audience where I know for a fact, if I were to write a fantasy novel today, let's say I started writing it now, it took me a year, and I would self-publish it next year. I would sell it, and I would sell probably thousands of copies, especially if it's, $1 on Amazon or whatever you would pay for a fiction book, $15, $10, whatever it is. I would sell thousands of copies and make some money. Now, would I make a shitload of money? No, but I'd make some. So now I have the ability to monetize a hobby because of my other businesses that I started, that I wanted to start, that I enjoy a lot. But now Billie and I are in positions where we could pick a hobby that wouldn't make money normally, that now will, because of the leverage we've built through our other companies. So in my business, we had the comic book, Black Dragon and Pink Firefly, to sell the NFTs. And I just started that up again. And if I wanted to, I haven't decided if I'm going to do that for free or not. But if I sold that for $1, I would make enough money to make a profit on the artist and the time it would take for me to write and things like that. Not a lot of money, but I would make some. So there you go. I can now, Billie and I both can now start hobby businesses that would make money, that actually would make a profit, whereas before they wouldn't. And I just thought of that as you were talking, because that's true now. I was thinking, down the road, I'll write fantasy fiction novels and I won't make any money. No one will buy them, but it'll be fun. But that's not true anymore. I would make some money because of the customers, because the trust I've built in the marketplace, if that all makes sense. Yeah.
It does. I think I could position myself as a foraging expert. I'd have to do more research, and I would not deal with mushrooms. But I could position myself as, an edible wildflower expert for the Midwest. I could write a cookbook. I could do any number of these things. I could start
and you would make money at all those things.
And I would make money at each and every one of them. But that's also because we understand the core tenets, right? When you are scaling a hobby and monetizing a hobby, are you doing it to support that hobby? Are you doing it to support your lifestyle? They're two different things. So when we're monetizing our hobbies, we don't really care if we're covering all the expenses. We don't care how much we're getting paid per hour for that output. That's something that we're willing to do anyway.
It's a hobby.
So the number doesn't matter. But if you say, listen, I'm going to go all in on my hobby, you need to be damn sure that you have several strategies in place where you can make enough to sustain your lifestyle. So the approach has to be more calculated, and you have to be really realistic about what your needs are and how you're going to get there. And that's where Caleb and I and plenty of other coaches can help you with that very specific advice. But it's understanding the two different mentalities. I've seen a lot of people, I go to craft shows and festivals quite a bit, like Harvest Fest and all that kind of old lady stuff. And the one thing I notice is all these different vendors consider themselves businesses, and they are. They're taxes businesses, they're legally structured correctly. But maybe 2% of those individuals are business owners, meaning that they understand the process. They understand their cost, their pricing, their margins, all of their cost of sales, cost of goods. They understand end-to-end and
treat it like a real business.
Yep. And we have the other 98%. She's like, no, this is just my hobby. It doesn't matter. I don't care if I don't make enough money to pay for my booth fee because it's just a hobby. My thinking is very different. I had never wanted to be a vendor at one of those events. And I only did it a handful of times. I would send other people because I just don't like sitting there and small talking and doing sales chatter. But what I learned the first time out is, okay, I can make a couple thousand a day. And the reality is I'm not getting out of bed for less than 1,500, 2,000, whatever that number is for me. I'm not getting out of bed for that. There are a lot of people say, well, if you make 3 times your booth fee or your advertising cost, you're really in it. And I feel that's bullshit. If you're paying $40 for a physical location at a festival, for example, or a farmer's market, $120 on your day is a waste of time, in my opinion. $1,200 is not, and you can get my interest for that. So strategize how to grow that hobby as a business, not just how you monetize that hobby, if that's the direction you want to go.
And to that point, you may decide, and I've seen people do this, you may decide, well, no, if I have to treat this like a business, then I don't want to do this. I'll keep it as a hobby, and that's kind of what I did. I'll start a business that is interesting to me, but not a hobby. And I'll use that to make my bazillions of dollars or support my lifestyle. And I'll just keep doing my hobby. And, then I don't taint it. But you're right. So that's a valid choice, by the way. That's actually a choice that has a lot of integrity to it, because I've seen people do it. You know what? I don't want to, and I don't use the word taint, but they do. I don't want to taint this by making it into involving money into my hobby. I want to keep it as I just want to be a painter, and I just want to paint. I don't have to worry about money and worry about, marketing this. And I don't want to worry about that. I'll go ahead and start a business that I know will make money, that it functions under a niche and do the things we talk about here, and keep those things separate. And that's fine. And then maybe down the road, once this business supports your lifestyle, you could take this hobby and now make money with it, as I was talking about a minute ago. But Billy is right. And I will say that the 98%, 2%, if you modify that a little bit, if you modify that maybe 90%, 10%, that's all business owners. I've talked about this a million times. The reason business owners don't make money, the bottom line reason, the core, the surface level reason is they don't market enough and they don't have correct margins. They know what they're doing. Okay. But the core reason is because they're selling what they want to sell, what they like and what they think is fun, not what the marketplace wants. They're not viewing it as a business. They're viewing it as a business that they want to succeed in, not a business that the marketplace wants, which is why we harp so much on identify a narrow niche with a problem that the niche actually has, not a problem you think they have, the problem that they have, and then help them solve that problem. Instead of saying, I like computers, I want to sell computers, or I lost 40 pounds, I'm going to sell weight loss. That won't make any money. That's what you want to do. That's not necessarily what the marketplace wants you to do. Rarely, go ahead.
My favorite example of yours is the fat gamer down in his basement, enjoying his life. You might want him to be fit. He doesn't give a fuck. He wants to enjoy his life, his Doritos, his Mountain Dew, and his game.
Yeah, I've had at least 3 guys in my audience say, hey, here's my business idea. I want to help gamers lose weight or gamers get fit. Do gamers give a fuck about losing? No, they don't. And so that's a projection model. You're physically fit and you like playing video games, which is awesome. But then you see all these gamers who are fat, you say, well, you know what? They need to lose weight. Yes, I agree with you, they do, but they don't give a shit about that. You can't project the needs of the marketplace, your perceived needs on the marketplace. You have to look at what the marketplace wants and give them what they want. This is why over the years, I have I would say every 4 years on my online companies, and I've been doing business online since 2009. So every about 4 years, I radically change everything I'm doing. I radically change it because I can see the marketplace changes. The market wants something very different now than it wanted 10 years ago on the internet. They're constantly changing these things. And so if you just sit there and say, no, I want to keep doing what I want to do, or I want to do what I want to do, even if you end up making money, if you don't change with the times, your income will drop. I've seen a lot of business owners do that.
My favorite, Caleb, my very, very favorite from business owners is, I don't want to make that change. It's going to alienate some of my customer base.
Right.
Well, the problem is you don't have enough of a fucking customer base. How about if we open it up? How about if we come into the times? And how about if you develop this huge swath of the community, of your demographic that you haven't? You have a fabulous niche. My favorite example locally is we have this laser and electrolysis center. I love the owners. I love the facility. I love their services. No, much love being sent their way. But the owners are older. They do everything by phone. So instead of just booking a consult online and charging a fee to hold that time, you're wasting the time on the phone. People are asking questions, like very specific service-related questions about tattoo or hair removal of a receptionist who's then going and bothering the practitioners.
Kill me.
So they're spending twice as much labor as they need to, bare minimum, just to book appointments.
So stupid.
They sure as hell don't want to do it online, and they don't want to have a chargeable cancellation policy because their old clients from 30 years ago might might not want to go that route.
Right. And
So
by the way,
that
well, go ahead.
limiting drives me nuts. Pivots are needed. My company boss has only been in business a couple of years as that particular iteration, but the scope of that business has evolved pretty dramatically over the last couple of years. And we're on the same trajectory, but it's not what we anticipated. But we're responding to what the market need is.
Right. And if you listen to Billie's example and say, well, but I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm a young guy and I'm online. Online businesses make this mistake. I've seen, and maybe Bill, you've seen, and you listening to this podcast may have seen companies who have been online for like, well more than 5 years. And you go look at their websites and it's the same style of website that was really popular like 7 years ago and they haven't changed it. Or they have an email newsletter. It's the old style of email newsletter with all these links on the right-hand side, and they haven't changed it in years for the same reason. They want to alienate their current list. Well, stupid. Now, if you make I always throw this out there. If you make all the money you want to make and you're good to go, you don't need any more new customers, and you're just going to write off what you have, fine. But if that's not the scenario, making these mistakes is stupid. You have to change these things. You're limiting your income and you're also threatening your business. But see, at some point, that electrolysis business is going to go out of business because they're not changing. Over time, they're going to slowly decline and they'll be gone.
Well, and the sad thing is that there are competitors that have popped up that are national chains that do everything automated. So I don't need to talk to a person. Right. And I prefer that. I wouldn't have thought that 5 years ago or 10 years ago of myself. But how often do we pick up the phone now and actually talk to people?
Yeah.
Very rarely indeed. I certainly don't want to do it for such a simple salon service.
You know what's so funny about that is that when texting started really catching on around 2008, 9-ish, since then, certainly now, when someone calls you, when the phone rings, you're like, ugh. There's an immediate like aversion. Whereas before texting, people call you and you go, okay, and you pick up the phone. But today, you're like, why is someone calling me? When you have email and social media and WhatsApp and SMS and all this stuff, and someone calls you, your first thought is, what? I don't know how you feel about it, but I do. I go, what the fuck?
No, I just wonder, what's wrong? Or why are you being so intrusive?
What's wrong?
Why are you intruding on my afternoon?
And the most people who call me, most entities are like companies trying to sell me something or surveys, or you talked to our customer service yesterday. We have that kind of crap. And yeah, I don't know how effective that is, but that's again, that has to go back to how the marketplace changes.
I think the best example of that are all of the different TV shows that have been out there over the years. Like Gordon Ramsay with his kitchen nightmares or whatever. I can't remember the name of the shows. In the UK, there's the Hotel Inspector. There's a bar rescue show in the US. We have all of these, and the common thread through every single one of these programs is, what does the current market want? Are you stuck in the past? Are you stuck with what your desires are? Are these your favorite recipes, but the customers aren't buying them? Why the hell are they still on your menu? Your ego cannot be the thing that dictates how your business runs if it's truly a business. If it's a hobby, your ego can dictate whatever it wants. But
it's not just about, you might be thinking, well, I don't have a business. I don't know, worry about changing. This applies to starting a new business. You can start a new business. I've seen people do this. I know you have, Billy, where they start the business and they're starting off on a model that is already 5 years old or 10 years old, or God forbid, even longer than that. So you're starting off the wrong foot. So here's an example, a somewhat parallel example. Just about an hour or two, I was on the phone call with one of my marketing guys, and he was talking about, we're talking about doing webinars. And for a very specific type of funnel, not just doing webinars in general, but a very specific type of funnel. And he was saying, people don't do webinars anymore for that funnel. They don't do them. I'm like, well, they work great. Caleb, they worked great. And they did. I made a lot of money doing webinars since 2018, but that was 2018. Because now what you do is you do this, because the market has changed in terms of their perception of webinars, in terms of that model. We're not talking about never doing webinars, and I'll keep doing them. But I can see people, matter of fact, I have, start a business based around webinars on a specific type of funnel because they saw a YouTube video of a guy making money on webinars that was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, what have you. And now they're starting their business based on old models. So you have to be very aware of what does the current customer base or the current marketplace want now, not only just if you have an existing business, but if you start a new business, what do they want now? And then how do they like their information presented to them? What website models are current now? What email structures are current now? What marketing funnels are current now? What social media? I mean, here's a big one, TikTok. Just 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, people said TikTok is stupid. I was doing TikTok videos back then. Why are you on TikTok? That's a bunch of 16-year-olds lighting firecrackers out of their butts. What the hell are you doing TikTok videos? Guess what? TikTok has taken over the world. And now TikTok is probably going to be one of the biggest social media platforms in the world shortly. Everyone's going to TikTok. I have more TikTok followers now than I do YouTube followers. Crazy. But so that changed just in a year, that changed.
I remember you and I having those conversations 18 months, 2 years ago, when you were starting to more of a presence on Twitter. We both thought, we're older people. TikTok. This is for dumb kids. Oh, excuse me. You're right. TikTok. This is for dumbass kids. Why? We'll not spend very much time on this platform. We'll do some token efforts to have some presence. And here we are a year and a half later, and you have all these viral videos. Mm-hmm. Crazy. We could never have anticipated that. But thank goodness we took the advice of others and paid attention to what the marketplace was looking for.
Right. Even if you don't agree, I think TikTok's dumb. Even if you don't agree, I hate Twitter. I'm about to go back to Twitter. Matter of fact, by the time you see or watch this podcast, I might already be there because now that Elon's back on Twitter, everyone's excited about Twitter again. And Twitter, some people are and some people aren't. But the net gain on Twitter is big. And I was hoping and thinking, mostly hoping over the last that Twitter would die, that other things would replace Twitter. That has not happened. Twitter is still just rock solid in the culture. Well, for better or for worse. In the
culture, but then he lost 75% of his workforce in the last 48 hours. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But I just saw a report that gained X million of real new followers or something. I saw that too.
Cool. And I'm not into social media much. I use it very little because I just don't care.
Yeah, it's not your thing.
Kind of vapid to me. I'd rather learn something than be infotained. So those short format videos I don't get it.
Right. I don't like them.
Acknowledge like other people do. They love it. They like our content.
Yeah, I don't like TikTok. I don't like Twitter. There's a lot of things that I'm a part of. I don't really like Instagram. Doesn't matter. The marketplace likes these things. My customers are there. A lot of my potential customers are there. My clients are there. So I have to be there and I have to take the time and effort. It's not that I like it. I don't hate it. It's like, I hate doing social. I mean, I don't hate it. But if it were up to me, I'd be like Billy. I'm like, all right, no social media. None. I loved blogging far more than I like doing YouTube videos. I don't hate doing YouTube videos. They're fine. But I really loved blogging. But I stopped blogging, at least as a focused medium they didn't outsource, and shifted to video about 3 years ago. Because why? That's where the marketplace is going. So you just, you got to do it. Just suck it up and do it. You want to make money or not? Yeah. Boy, I could go on about that. The things you have to do because they worked out because you love them. That's part of business, unfortunately. Doesn't mean you hate everything you do, but you get my point.
I do. And yet the one that I struggled with the most was a few years ago, I helped a client start a property management company. And he at the time was an exec at Facebook, kind of one of those young wunderkinds who's going to take over the world. Brilliant guy. And he said, don't answer the phone. Because I kept saying, Jonathan, too many phone calls. There's so much traffic. This is a property management business. And he said, no, don't answer the phone. And I nearly lost my mind because as a woman in her 40s, I have that idea that customer service means that you're available. You talk to human right away. Mm-hmm. That is good customer service. And the reality is that cost our business far too much money. We were able to reduce labor by 80% by just instituting a VoIP phone system with voicemail boxes attached. We would get back to the people quickly, but we could then do it remotely.
When it made sense, right?
Yeah, we can do it when it made sense, from where it made sense, and we could have team members around the world be responsive for us.
Mm-hmm.
That was so emotionally hard for me to let go of, though, because I thought, no, I'm running this. I'm in charge of all the staff. The staff are all new. The business is new. These clients are relying on me, and somebody has to do it. So Billie's going to do it. And that was I understand where I was coming from because we've been trained that way. But in reality, people were so pleased with our customer service when we stopped answering the phones because they knew they would hear back from us within 24 hours. And in the world of property management, that's incredibly rare. So it was me dialing back what I thought that expectation was based on the reality that I was facing and overcoming my own emotional aversion.
A lot of my messaging and content revolves around one of the concepts that your emotions are often wrong. That applies to me too. Emotions, your brain is one thing, the thinking part of your brain, your frontal lobe, and then your reptilian brain in the back, those are two different functions. And often your emotions are wrong in terms of being effective in the world and getting effective results for yourself. And it sucks to say that, but it's true. If you've ever been in a relationship with someone ever in your life that you shouldn't have been in a relationship with, I've certainly been in that category. Every human being has. Your emotions were wrong. You thought they were right, but they were wrong. That's how it works. And business works the same way. Yeah.
And we've all been in that position. This isn't unique to any one individual out there. You're all going to run into this if you haven't already.
Right.
And it's just part of life. You roll with it. You learn from it. You remember.
I have this problem. Yeah, we all have this problem. It's a constant battle. I would like to do, so I'll give you a real easy example on mine. I don't have that many YouTube followers, primarily because I'm not doing exactly what the YouTube algorithm likes. There's certain things I should be doing in terms of my topics that I should be tweaking that I don't want to do it. And I'm better at it now than I used to be, but I'm still not 100%. I could be way better, but I just don't want to do it. And over time, I'll get better and better, but that's how it works. That's one of the scenarios where I didn't follow my own advice, at least not 100%. But at least at a minimum, I'm aware of it. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing wrong. But yeah, this is something you'll fight. It's not something that, you just solve one day. And it's not like you can just be a robot and suck it up. None of us are like that. Yeah, that's the way it goes.
No, and it's easy for us to make examples of other businesses like the electrolysis place that I brought up earlier.
Right.
It is absolutely not exclusive to them. I have plenty of my own examples. No, it's just easier for us to bring those up because they're a little bit closer to the top of our brain because these are the challenges we're working on. And we're so close to our own issues that we often forget to bring those up.
There are still businesses out there, and we got to wrap this up pretty quick, but we should do like a part 2 to this. There are businesses out there still that operate based on faxes. I'm trying to remember one. It's lumber wholesaling. They operate based on faxes. And it's not the industry. It's certain people in the industry or certain people within a geographic region. And they just stick with this system because that's what they've been doing for 20 years.
Parts of the banking world are that way too.
Oh God, of course, banking's awful. Oh my God, yes.
It is really awful. But one thing I learned from that fellow the young wunderkind from Facebook was he would tell businesses, my company and I do not own nor will we ever use a fax machine on principle. It is ridiculous for you to be asking us to do so. Here is the email.
Right.
Those companies are going to fall by the wayside. I can't imagine what their labor expenses must be.
Oh, I know. But what's hilarious about a lot of those companies, they'll say, then we can't work with you. We're mandated by corporate headquarters to blah, 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 blah. Very similar to the IRS. A lot of government agencies, they need a fax or things like that. Well, we have to, we can't work with you. Yeah. That's another podcast in and of itself.
Yep, there's nothing wrong with qualifying your clients as well as your staff.
Correct. Right.
But we'll do that another show, definitely. I think there's so much.
We have a lot of fodder for at least 2 more podcasts just in these last like 15 minutes. We could do a part 2 and part 3 to this. No problem.
Yes, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to talk about.
As always, yes, please let us know.
Yep, share your experiences as well. We'd love to hear what some of the pain points you've had or some of the pain points you run into with your clients, specifically those who've owned a business for a few years. we always get a lot of good stories when we start spooling those yarns. So we'd love to hear yours as well.
And because this is a new podcast, you as the audience have an opportunity to shape this podcast. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We just talk about listening to the audience. So if you guys may be leaning us in directions that Billie and I wouldn't think about. So let us know, because that will certainly dictate the paths we take in terms of these topics and things like that. Yeah. Cool. All right.
Well, looking forward to Thanksgiving coming up soon. Caleb, before we go, how do you celebrate Thanksgiving while you're in Dubai, or do you?
Only Americans celebrate Thanksgiving, and there are hardly any Americans in Dubai. So certain restaurants do have Thanksgiving menus on that day. So we're going on Saturday. So Thanksgiving's on a Thursday, right? Yeah. And again, by the time you watch this podcast, Thanksgiving will be kind of gone. I understand. But anyway, so we're recording this a few days before Thanksgiving. So we're going Saturday. We're going to a fancy Thanksgiving event thing for those dorky Americans who like this silly American holiday, because I don't give a shit about Thanksgiving, but my wife is really into the Thanksgiving food, the turkey and the cranberry and the stuffing. That's a big part of her childhood and a big part of her experience. So she's like, I don't care what we do, as long as we eat that Thanksgiving food on Thanksgiving. That's all right. And luckily, Dubai has everything. So they have Thanksgiving catered specific meals or courses. So we're just doing that. And we'll probably go see a movie.
Awesome.
If we could find one. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I don't do the Thanksgiving thing either, but I love the food. It's like my favorite meal of the year. So I ordered it from my favorite food truck. We did that. We would order in. We'd done that once or twice here in the United States. Yeah. Well, these guys go over the top. There are usually like 10 different dishes at least.
Oh man, don't tell my wife. She'll be jealous.
It's insane. So yeah, I'll have Thanksgiving enough for a week, and I just ordered, one meal, but it'll be enough for the entire week, and I don't have to leave my home. My dogs and I can hang out. No whining kids, no travel. It's perfect.
The average American consumes 7,000 calories on Thanksgiving. I believe that's accurate. Someone Google that to verify that, but that's what I've heard. The average American. I probably do 10,000. Because I can shovel food. Less now that I'm older and smaller, but
I can't. I can't eat a lot at once.
I know you can. I know you can. I can. I can less. One of the actual advantages of getting older is that you can't eat as much food as you could when you were young. So I definitely can't eat as much as I'm able to. And I've lost weight. So I don't think my stomach can handle what it used to be able to handle like 15 years ago. I could eat a whole pizza and then, breadsticks, and I could do that. No problem. I feel awful, but I could do it. Today I can't do that. I can't do it. So that's
holy smokes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the holiday. Stay warm.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
Pretty soon, Caleb. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, guys.